Hey everyone, you're listening to Party Time, My Golf Story with Kevin Walsh, and whatever special guest he has today, you can check me out on episode 9 of the podcast. Today I'm wearing Grayson clothes while I'm out practicing because I believe in look good, play good, and follow me on Instagram, Sophia Warren Golf, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers. And the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com. Now here's your host, Kevin Walsh.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the program. Rand Jerris is our guest here today. He is a noted golf historian, worked for the USGA for some 32 years. He knows everything about everything at the USGA and can make it all interesting because it is. I met Rand years ago playing a round of golf at Marion. I'm not sure which was the bigger highlight, playing golf with Rand or playing at Marion. Oh, come on now. It was all great. It was just a really good day. And I figured if I ever get a chance to talk to him again, I'd really like to talk to him because I enjoyed that round with him at Marion Golf Club in suburban Philadelphia. Hey, before we go any further, would you do me a favor? I feel like a flight attendant. I say the same thing over and over again at the beginning of our flight. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, would you do that? Because that matters to the algorithms. That certainly matters to our title sponsors and all of that stuff. And share the podcast with a friend. That's how we grow it. We're at about 14,000 subscribers right now, hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube, but also on the other platforms, Apple and Spotify. So subscribe if you haven't done it, share with a friend, leave comments, and leave a 5-star review in all the different places. Got it? Thanks. Appreciate that. Big thanks to our title sponsor, Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course and you're a little tired of hard seltzers and pretending that they actually taste good when you know they don't, or you don't like beer and you want an adult beverage, but something that is classy, that is built for you, try Party for golfers by golfers. Paradise Craft Distributors is the exclusive distributor of Party across the state of Florida. If you don't have Party at your golf club, get in touch with the beverage staff or the professional golf staff and say, hey, we got to have some of this stuff. Others have it, and we want to hear, and you will not be disappointed. If golf real estate purchasing is in your plans in the future, and by the way, it's a great time to buy. It's a buyer's market, and Southwest Florida is your kind of place, greater Sarasota area. Nobody better than the golf real estate pros, Vince Visicaro, Gene Walsh, and Samantha Walsh from suncoastdreams.com, a division of Fine Properties. And if all that golf has you tuckered out, then go to Violet Spa in downtown Sarasota. Some good friends of mine. They run the place. They own the place. You can unwind with a massage, with cold water plunge, red light therapy, hot tub, sauna, whatever. Violet Spa in downtown Sarasota has you covered. All right, here's Rand Jerris. Rand, my gosh, it's been such a long time since we were last together. How have you been, my man?
I've been great. It's good to see you again. Fond memories of times together at Marion. Always a great place to be.
What a place. I want to talk about Marion and some of the older established clubs and just a little bit. But if you don't mind, I'd like to know a little bit about your name. I mean, usually there's another letter at the end of it. I don't think I'm breaking news to you. What's the genesis behind Rand? Because I only know of 2 others in the world.
So in fact, the formal name has 2 letters behind it. It's Randon, Randon. My parents, I'm a child of the late 1960s, and Randy was a popular name back then. And my parents liked the name, but didn't want me to be stuck with the Y when I got older. So formally, I am Randon. So they took Brandon and chopped off the letter B and invented Randon. And I have met one other Randon in my life, and she looked at me and I looked at her. And we said, you have the wrong name. So I was Randy. Known as Randy all the way through elementary school and high school. And when I went to college, it was time to drop the Y. So I went to Rand, and that was sort of how most people have known me. But that started freshman year in college.
That's a good story because your parents gave it some good thought and everything, and then you gave it some thought, and here we are, Rand Jerris. Tell me about where do you live now? And tell me about the background there. My assumption would be that it's kind of like golf memorabilia, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
So home is New Jersey, suburban New Jersey. We're about 20 minutes from the USGA headquarters in Liberty Corner. Obviously, because I worked at the USGA for so long, we've just, kids were raised here and we've stayed local, even though we're empty nesters now. This is the living room in the Jerris household. And I guess, what you see in the background are paintings of Maine. Love Maine. We love the coast of Maine. Love to spend some time up there. That's always been my retreat and my getaway. When things were crazy at the USGA and we needed a break, we love to go up to Maine and just enjoy the coast, especially in the summer months. And then a big bookshelf, a lot of books. I've always been an avid reader. I kind of consider myself a lifelong learner. And I would say half the books on that bookshelf are golf books. The other half are art history books, which is my formal training, my academic training. So,
well, I know you love history and you've got golf history down probably better than anybody, and how to set up a museum. Did a wonderful job at the USGA for a long time. But take me back to the roots. Where does your golf journey begin?
In my parents' basement. When I was 12 years old, I found my father's set of golf clubs. I don't remember my father playing golf when I was a kid. I think he played when he was in high school, a little bit when he was in college. And then when family came around, he kind of gave up the game. But one afternoon, I found his set of clubs in the basement and thought they were kind of interesting. I was an avid baseball player at that time. Hitting a moving ball with a stick instead of a stationary ball. And the concept of golf sort of intrigued me. I had no idea what I was doing. So I took his golf clubs out of the basement, went out on the front lawn, teed up a golf ball with a putter. I had no idea what a golf club was or the differences between them. I had his putter out, and I started taking whacks at a golf ball with a putter. And I'm sure they're not watching, so I can say this, bouncing golf balls off the side of the neighbor's house. And my dad came home from work and he was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And he said, are you serious about this? Do you really care? And I said, yeah, I'd kind of like to try. So we spent a summer just going to the driving range and do a little par 3. He was like, "I'm not taking you on a golf course until you have some comfort and can get around." Mm-hmm. So we spent the summer doing that. And then, by the end of the summer, I went and played my first round of golf. And what I remember most distinctly about that round, on the 7th hole, 127-yard par 3, I hit a 5-wood to 2 inches. Closest I've ever come to a hole-in-one. Closest I've ever come. 2 inches. Very first round of golf on a real golf course. And I was hooked, right? Like that moment, you have that experience as a 12-year-old kid and you're like, wow, this is really cool. So I was completely hooked and then started playing the game pretty regularly after that.
When did the USGA come into the picture and how did it?
Yeah. Freshman year, right? The summer after my freshman year in college at Williams College up in Massachusetts, I was an art history major. And I was contemplating a career at that point, career in museum work. And so I was looking for just a summer job. And at that point, the USGA used to hire college students for the summer, actually to work at the research and test center. So where they do all the testing of golf clubs and golf balls, they would hire kids to basically stand out on the driving range and shag fly balls from Iron Byron. Right. So they'd be testing golf balls, hitting balls out on the range, and kids would be out there getting golf balls hit at them, but recording where the ball landed and radioing it back in. That's how they collected data. And I was an avid golfer. The USGA was 20 minutes from my parents' house. That could be a cool summer job. So I went over actually to interview for a job in the test center, mentioned in the course of the interview that I was an art history major. And they said, "You know what? We also have an internship in the museum," which I didn't know about. "Maybe you would rather intern at the museum." And I said, yes. And little did I know that would begin a 32-year association with the organization. So interned at the USGA Museum in the summer of 1988. And then kept going back every summer. Just fell in love with the museum, with the artifacts, the history of the game. It was an extraordinary summer job for a college student who loved golf. Never, ever thought it would be a career. But I did that for 10 years, all the way through undergraduate and graduate school, getting my PhD in art history. thought I was going to be a college professor. There were no teaching jobs the year that I finished up at Princeton, and the USGA. I got offered two jobs: the first historian for the World Golf Hall of Fame and the first historian for the USGA.
Wow.
So I went back to the USGA, and that was 1999. And then started working there full time. And then, just through the years, many different roles and responsibilities at the USGA, but always through all that time, my strongest connection and what I loved the most was working with the museum and the museum collections.
That's a great story. Sounds like you were in the right place at the right time, had the love for it. They had the need for it. And wow, 32 years later, can we go back? Like for me, the story that I hear over and over again, and I'll tell you where it comes from, the genesis behind it, is a speech that Brandon Walsh from the country club in Brookline would always tell at One Day Member Guests, in which he basically called the country club the birthplace of American golf as we know it. The history being Francis Ouimet, the storied amateur, 19 years old, caddy at the country club, lived across the street, won the US Open. And that really put golf on the map in America. Can you talk about not so much the accuracy? I assume that is true, but if Francis did not win, what would golf be like here? Can you put a little perspective on it?
Yeah, you said not to, but I might challenge the story. I love the story of the country club as the birthplace of American golf, but I actually put it in the 1880s. I don't put it with Francis in 1913. The game was exploding in this country actually in the 1890s. 1994, when the USGA is established, there's about 50 clubs in the country. By 1900, there's 1,000. There's golf courses in every state, and the game is booming in popularity. And surging in numbers. And it's this sort of unique American institution of the country club that gets connected with the game. And so when you say like golf in America is defined by the country club, I go, absolutely, because of the institution, because of like this really interesting social structure that was put around the game. So golf is really, truly, it is growing rapidly. Before Francis wins the Brookline in 1913. And I think what I love about the 1913 story, like we think about it today, and it's like this 20-year-old amateur beat the two greatest professional players in the world. And you kind of go, in the US Open, right? Oh my God, an amateur wins the US Open beating the greatest players. We're stunned by that story. If you look at the newspapers at the time, what was really important about 1930, it wasn't an amateur beats the professional. It was the United States beats Great Britain at its own game. It was a story about like national pride and nationalism. It was American ascendancy. And this is what was going on like in the country at the time. This is why I love golf history so much, is golf doesn't happen in isolation. Golf happens in a context, and it's social context, a cultural context, a historical context. And why 1913 is so important is the British Empire is declining, dare we say crumbling, while the American Empire is ascending. Like this is the great age of American military power, American economic power. We are displacing the British on this global stage in just about every arena. And one of the last ones to fall, and in some ways, like the one of iconic places that it happened, is actually on the golf course. So if you look at the newspapers from 1913, like there's cartoons of Uncle Sam hugging Francis Ouimet, right? The country embracing this kid because he beat the two greatest British players in the world at their own game. And I love that part of the story. And so what does it do? Like it gives America pride in golf. Like we have hit this moment, reached this moment, this pinnacle where America actually displaces Great Britain on the global stage. And think about everything that happens after that, right? The British Open kind of goes into decline as it's replaced by the US Open. Professional golf in Europe, which was the pinnacle, is replaced by what happens with, the PGA of America. Professional golf in the United States, what becomes the professional tour, right? So Ouimet's win gives us as a nation, as a golfing nation, it gives us this incredible level of confidence that allows the game to surge and grow. And that next generation of heroes, Jones, we met, right? Jones, Hagen, Saracen, right? It's the Americans who come to define the sport for 50 years. If that doesn't happen, if we met doesn't give us that confidence, it remains probably more of a British and a Scottish game, like they're the elite players in the world. And as it is, that's not what happens, right? And then it takes like 80 years for the Ryder Cup to finally invert that shift in who's the better golfers, the Europeans or the Americans. So anyway, it's such a cool story.
It is. And that's the perspective I was looking for. I knew I was going to learn something in our conversation there. I didn't take into account the nationalism part and like the world history and the geopolitical stuff that was going on there. So that was cool.
It actually, I'm going to give you more history than you want. 1898, the Spanish-American War is the first time that U.S. really sends military forces overseas, and we start to gain territory. Like we literally start to physically build territories and an empire. At the same time, we're replacing the British. And so there's this like amazing 15-year period where America's place on the global stage changes. And golf follows right along with that, which is what's really cool.
Very cool. So back to Marion when we met in 2008. It was just before the Walker Cup. I'm a Philly boy, and I always looked at Marion like, oh, I got to play there. And finally that opportunity came. And so I had this expectation that Marion, it was going to be this grand clubhouse and everything. And I was kind of blown away by how small it was and how kind of weathered it was. I'm not saying it wasn't great. But I just thought there'd be a little more polish on it and everything. And then I was lucky enough to go to Pine Valley, and I'm like, it's a little worn around the edges. And some would say the country club in Brookline is the same way. And then I was told this is how it is at some of the older established clubs. And where less is more with the clubhouse, it's all about the golf. Am I on the right track here?
Absolutely. Right. And this is the sort of uniqueness of when I mentioned earlier, like the country club as an establishment, as a social institution that kind of exists in conjunction with the game of golf. And a lot of clubs have sort of resisted or pushed back on that notion of we need to be a country club. They want to first and foremost be a golf club. And so it's about the golf course, right? All the resource, all the attention, all the energy goes into the golf course. We want you to feel like super relaxed and comfortable, welcome. And like, right. So when you take some of that edge off of like, it's not the most lavish, it's not the most large, it's understated, it actually helps you. I think it makes you feel really comfortable and really welcome when you get the opportunity to go to these places. Like you're not walking into a museum, you're not walking into some like mansion where you can't sit there and you can't touch things. Like it's worn and it's dated and so you feel welcome, and then you feel the history, right? With the age and the weathering, the spike marks all over the floor, the spike marks on the benches in the locker room, right? You get the sense of decades or generations of golfers who came before you. And I think that's one of the special characteristics of the game. And it goes back, look, it's the same way in the UK, the R&A clubhouse, it's a little ragged around the edges, right? The great clubhouses in Great Britain, it's the same way because you know what? It's not about hyper polished and hyper new and everything perfect. It's about A, you're in a really historic place where generations have been before you. And B, we just want you to feel welcome and comfortable and not like you have to like be on edge.
Yeah, I like that. And I got on board with that once I was sold, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. This is great. And you know what's another weather place is the White House. If you've for those that haven't been, there are cracks in the walls. The carpets are a little bit worn here. Like the lawn isn't as manicured as nicely as maybe you think, but I was told that's because it's the people's house. It can't be too posh and polished. Yeah. Course setups. Can we get into that? I don't hear quite as much criticism from PGA Tour players and the stars of the game as I used to. How was that internalized at the USGA? And did those that were involved in course setups, did they care about the criticism?
Deeply. Deeply. It matters deeply because, the men and women at the USGA who give their lives to the championships, it's an honor to be involved in. It's an immense responsibility when you are crowning a national champion. You are temporary stewards of some of the most iconic golf courses, the greatest landscapes in the game. You want to present them and show them off the best. Like, there is so much pressure that these, really good people feel when they're going into those moments, and they want everything to be perfect because they want to present the very best test. And, this is something I think people have sort of misunderstood in the popular culture for years. Like, the USGA is not looking to just set up the most difficult golf course. It's actually really easy to make a golf course really, really hard, but that doesn't mean it's fair. And nobody ever wanted an unfair test. The language that we talked about internally, the language we tried to share externally, was about presenting the most complete test. You think about what is the game of golf like? Break it down to its essence. Navigating 18 holes of a golf course, using and getting every club in the bag dirty, and show us that you can, because it's the pinnacle of the game, show us that you can control the ball, show us that you can hit the ball high, that you can hit the ball low, that you can hit a fade, that you can hit a draw, that you can hit it with a lot of spin and have it stop, that you can hit it with no spin and have it bounce and roll, right? So that you create this complete test that's literally testing both the physical skill and the mental skill and the emotional stamina of the greatest players in the game. That's a big responsibility, and it's something the USGA takes really seriously. And there are times when you're trying to create that complete test, there's going to be moments, because golf is an outdoor sport and you can't control all the elements. You can't control Mother Nature. There's going to be times and moments, unfortunately, when it goes over the edge and you lose it. And the criticism comes, and the criticism was, when it happened, it was accepted. It was understood. I would say people didn't push back. They really listened to it. And in the days and the weeks and the months that followed, there was a heck of a lot of internal discussion about, okay, what went wrong? How can we make it better? And even when things went really well, it was like, that was great, but what can we do better? Like, so there was this kind of quest for continuous improvement. Like, let's make it the very best we can. And we know it can always be better.
I always felt, Rand, I always felt like the players almost felt like they had house money and a green light to just pile on the USGA because they can't get fined. I mean, they can't talk that way about regular tour events because they're going to get fined. And so they deal with you guys once a year, and so they can just say whatever they want, and there are really no repercussions. Did you ever feel that way?
A couple other things here too. Like, number one, they're trained. Like, there's so much, like, the training that these players get starting from a really young age. Like, right, a key component is psychological training, building psychological strength, so you can deal with failure. You can deal, when things don't go your way. And one of the key strategies is actually to externalize it. Right, it's not your fault. So to help you, like, emotionally, psychologically get past it, let's push the failure off in some other direction, right? So I think that there's actually something in the emotional training which says, let's push some of this responsibility for some of failure off to another entity. And at that moment, right, the USGA becomes an obvious sort of, target for it. And I think, like, everybody understood that. Everybody understands the stakes are really high. The emotions are really high. The players are just going to complain. Number two, the media isn't always your friend, right? So it's a better story when there's controversy.
Oh, you need a villain.
Like,
you need a villain.
Right. 95% of the players are walking off a golf course going, wow, that was tough, but it was fair. Wow, what an amazing test. Wow, right? And the one guy comes off and he's swearing a blue streak and he's just, shot 82, and he's going to just unload on the first person that he gets into. And media jumps right on it, right? Because it makes a good story. To your point, you have a villain, you have a hero. and it's easy to kind of villainize the big bad, right? The government, the USGA with its government.
Exactly, because
right?
because to a lot of people, it seems like a soulless body. I don't mean that as derogatory, but it's just like when people criticize the government or the military or the church, they don't feel like they're hitting home personally.
Yep. And the reality is, like, behind that seal, behind those 4 letters, are people who care so deeply and so passionately about the game. Like, and so the criticism was always like, it mattered. People internally listened.
Yeah.
And we discussed it and we digested it. And we honestly looked at each other and said, did we do something wrong? Didn't we? How could we do something better? Where is this breaking down? And so, and then all this happens behind the scene, right? There's not a whole lot of transparency into what's happening there, but it's all taken I guarantee you, it's all taken really seriously inside the organization because it wants to do what's best for the game. It wants to do what's best for the fans. It wants to do what's best for the championship, for the players. And a lot of those situations are difficult. They're complex. But boy, there's a lot of like internal soul searching and gut wrenching that happens through all of that to make sure you're doing the right thing and doing the best thing. And I think like what I would want people to know, like the people I worked with so closely for 30 years have the biggest hearts and the biggest souls. Like they care so much about doing the right thing. And sometimes it's hard to articulate the wheres and the whys, like how you get to decisions, but the intentions were always, I think, noble.
Yeah. I work at a place now, a major resort in Florida, where everybody comes to it eventually, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, there's Padre Carrington, there's Cameron Young, like anybody can show up at any time. Does that happen at Golf House in North Jersey from time to time? Maybe, yeah. Well, tell me some stories.
And it's fun. Like, I mean, it's fun when it happens, and there's the expected and there's the unexpected. The expected is like Arnold Palmer, the days when Arnold would show up, and Arnold's. I don't even know where to start. Arnold was an amazingly warm human being. I got to know him pretty well through the years because of the museum. We built the Arnold Palmer Center for Golf History. We built an Arnold Palmer room at the USGA Museum. I got to spend a lot of time with him through all of that. And sometimes people would ask me like, wow, you like Arnold? What's Arnold like? And I would say, he's everything you'd want him to be. Just the warmest, sort of friendliest person. And when Arnold would show up at the USGA, like, everyone would just flock, right? Arnold is the building, buzz around the building. And he would stay as long as he needed to stay to interact with everyone who wanted to interact with him, like in a really personal and warm and friendly way. My favorite was when Alan Shepard came. So not the first person you'd think of from a golf experience, but on the 25th anniversary of Alan Shepard hitting a golf ball on the surface of the moon, Alan Shepard came because we had the club, we had the Moon Club in the USGA Museum collection. Alan came to the museum to do a program for school children. We brought in about 250 school kids during the day for him to talk to them about being an astronaut and about being in space and the space program and NASA and walking on the moon, right? Amazing. Like, this guy's an American hero. And then we had a program for the adults. We had the adult event in the evening, and there was 2.5 hours in between. And I was given the assignment as a college student to entertain Alan Shepard for 2.5 hours. And so he and I sat in the little staff lunchroom for 2 hours at the USGA Museum. And we talked about being an astronaut, about walking on the moon, about being an American hero, about being a space test pilot. It was the most, I think, amazing experience and greatest privilege I've had in my life, to sit with a hero that sort of like, yes, there's the golf story. Yes, right. But it transcended it. And I think the day that Alan Shepard came, and golf was sort of set to the side because there was this American hero that transcended all of that. And that's the kind of things that would happen because golf has, right, attracted US president, it's attracted business leaders, it's attracted people from every sort of walk of life. And I used to say, like, at the USGA, you're saying stream song, like, you sit there long enough, everybody comes through. Like you sit at Golf House long enough and everybody eventually who's connected to the game has some opportunity to be there. It ends up being an amazing experience. Alan Shepard and I talked for half an hour about, is there a God? What did he experience alone in orbit? Like the first time, what did he see? What did he feel? What did he touch? And I mean, it was like the conversation I least expected to have with Alan Shepard got deep into like personal religious beliefs, and what he saw and experienced as an astronaut. And it was like, it blew my mind. And the whole night finishes up, and we close up the museum, and I'm walking out the front door, and there in the sky is a giant full moon, right? And I'm looking up at it, I'm just like, that guy was there 25 years ago. Like,
isn't that crazy?
It is like mind blowing, but really cool.
Rand Jerris is our guest here on Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, try Party. If golf real estate is in your plans, no better place than Lakewood National Golf Club, by the way, which is where this podcast originates from. And nobody better than the golf real estate pros of Gene Walsh, Samantha Walsh, and Vince Visicaro from suncoastdreams.com. And if all that golf has got you tuckered out, go to Violet Spa in downtown Sarasota. Rand, can I follow up with the Alan Shepard story? Sure. Remind me, how many balls did he hit? He one-handed them. Yep. And I think I know the answer, but maybe you've got the perspective better than anybody. Why was the brand of golf balls never released?
2 golf balls, 3 swings. So you're right. Because of the bulkiness of the spacesuit, he could only get his right hand on the club. And if you watch the video, he takes the first swing and I mean, he kind of fluffs it, like it's sitting in moon dust, and the ball kind of went about 6 inches. Like he basically just kind of went under it, and the ball didn't go anywhere. So he made a little bit of an adjustment. Second swing, he shanked it. And the story he told the kids, and I remember really vividly, he said like he shanked it. It went 30 yards straight right into a big crater. You get the big laughs from that. And the third swing with the second golf ball. So he drops the second golf ball, third swing. He finally makes decent contact. And that's when he says, oh, great, I'm going to forget the line. On and on, basically. He finally makes good contact, and the ball went about 200 yards. But what was amazing, and he talked about this with the kids, like physics, gravity, the ball stayed in the air for 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
So it just
I didn't know this part because I've seen, like, I didn't see the end result. I only thought he hit it like maybe 10 feet.
No, it went about 200 yards, but it literally just floated off because 1/6 of the gravity. And so the ball literally stayed in the air for 30 seconds and went about 200 yards. He never revealed to because he didn't want anyone to commercialize, to take commercial advantage of it, right? So he never told anyone, except the thing that irritated him. Spalding produced these commemorative golf balls, first, commemorating the first golf shot on the moon, as if it were a Spalding ball. And it so irritated him that he would say, I will tell you it was not a Spalding ball.
Good for him. Good for him.
But he wouldn't reveal what else it was. And when we first got the Moon Club at the museum, it was in a sealed display case. It was displayed, it was mounted and displayed so that you couldn't see the back of the club face. So you didn't know who the manufacturer of the model was. There was a photo, black and white photo of the club disassembled, because it was actually it was this fold up tool. It was in parts. So they had included a photo of that with the back of the club head, but he had taken a black marker and crossed out the markings on the club head so nobody would know. Except the problem is it was really distinctive markings on the club face. So anyone who knew anything about clubs at the time would walk up and say, oh, it was a Wilson staff. And so eventually we got permission to display it differently, but eventually he started basically admitting it was Wilson staff because you couldn't hide it. So Wilson staff, it's known it was a Wilson staff 6-iron, but he never ever revealed to anyone what the brand of the golf ball was.
Okay, cool. How much golf are you playing now?
None. A couple times a year, not as much as I'd like to. It's always a joke in the industry. Like, if you want to play more golf, don't get a job in golf, because golf season is the busy season. I'd love to play more. Since I left the USGA about 4 years ago, I started a consulting business, and I'm now working with clubs around the country to help them care for their collections of historical artifacts. So having overseen the USGA Museum collection, worked extensively with the World Golf Hall of Fame collection. I'm now doing it at the local level, working with clubs around the country and helping them preserve history. And helping them storytell, helping them create exhibits in their clubhouses. So how much golf am I playing? Not very much, because I love what I'm doing. I spend 7 days a week in golf history. And at least for the time being, that's kind of replaced playing for me. But I'm happy enough with that. I'm so close to the game and touching so much of the game's history that it's satisfying.
I totally get what you just said there. You're still playing golf. You're just not hitting the shots. That's how I feel about caddying. I'm playing golf. I'm just not hitting the shots. Somebody told me one of my other great loves is fly fishing. And there's so much work to tie the flies, and I like to build rods. And somebody said, you're fishing while you're doing that. And I'm like, yes. I just need somebody to say that. And it's not that, but because you can't always be on site at the time. If we could do a little inside baseball at the USGA, the current president, Fred Purpall, is moving on to be replaced by Kevin Hammer. How does one become the president of the USGA? Is it like similar to the College of the Cardinals and the selection of the Pope? Is there any lobbying? Hey, I'd like this job. How does it all work? I don't know.
So the president always comes out of the executive committee, 15-member executive committee. There is a nominating committee of the USGA, which comprises a couple past presidents and a couple at-large members. The nominating committee spends a couple. They're all volunteers, and they spend an amazing amount of time. Number one, understanding where the organization is at and what its needs are. What's its strategic plan? What's its vision? Where's it trying to go? Where does it need expertise that it might not exist somewhere within the organization? And they'll go out into the golf community and they look for passionate, avid golfers. They look for folks who are leaders at clubs, folks who are business leaders, folks who are involved deeply in their state and regional golf associations, like people who are deeply passionate about the game and have skill sets that are necessary and helpful for the organization. And they go through a really extensive vetting process to find, a select group of folks who are passionate about the game and want to be part of its stewardship moving forward. And so the officers come out of the executive committee, and I would say the organization finds sort of natural leaders. There is not lobbying that goes on internally. I think it would be considered pretty unseemly. But it's always apparent, I think, in each group of sort of leaders, where the leaders are, where the voices are, who are the people that have the time. And I think that's one of the amazing things that I was amazed by and humbled by, is the executive committee members who would spend 150 or 200 days a year on their own time, who could step away from their jobs, their professional life, who had families who were incredibly understanding, to say, you know what, go pursue this passion, this interest, be the leader you can be. These people give up so much of their time and give so generously of their talents. And so you start to see, I think they emerge naturally within the group. Who is the strong voices? Who is the persuasive voices? Who has the time and the energy to invest in the leadership roles in the organization? And I would say those folks start to emerge when they become apparent. The nominating committee and the current president, I think, do a really nice job of making sure that potential candidates for the USGA president role, they'll serve on some of the most significant committees. A lot of them will serve as chair of the championship committee. They'll be on the rules committee. They'll be on equipment standards. There are always these committees that touch, I think, the most important work of the association, the stuff that's most critical for a healthy game. And so these folks get multiple years of exposure serving on those committees, so that by the time they are named the next president of the organization, they've touched the most important work and the most critical issues that the organization's working on.
Sounds like it. And it kind of sounds like whoever is the guy or gal, it's not a surprise in the end. Internally, it just,
by the time the announcement comes out, I would say most people know. Like some years, like it's like, oh, there's maybe there's two or three people under consideration who might come first. Mm-hmm. But you sort of see, because you see those traces, right? You see the people in the committees that they're serving on and the voices that they have in those committees. And certainly, like, you have this incredible professional staff of 300 people who are some of the most knowledgeable and passionate people in the game. Like, the staff has a voice in the process with the nominating committee. Like, we were always asked our perspectives, our opinions, our thoughts. They were always carefully considered. So the organization, through this like nominating process, takes so much information like as inputs to try to make the best decision that they can make in terms of who should be the voice in the leadership of the organization.
How much, profound question here, how much has golf enriched your life?
Wow. Try to say this without like breaking up. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't be who I am. My family wouldn't be what it is without my exposure to the game. I just feel so touched and blessed to have had this incredibly long experience or career in golf that was so many years with the USGA and now has morphed into something different. I think who I am as a person, my character, certainly my values, so much of that came from what I first learned on a golf course as a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old. So I can actually, it's interesting now that I'm talking, I'm thinking about your question. Like, I might start it in a different place and say, you know what? Set 32 years with the USGA to the side, set the last 4 years aside working with private clubs. Where golf has impacted me the most is probably the first 2 years that I was exposed to the game. And I spent time on the golf course with my father. And I learned the values of the game, and I built a strong relationship, and I learned to communicate with people. Like, it gave me the life skills that I think I've leveraged to be, successful as a human being, as a parent. But it also taught me like character and values and morals. And I think like those parts of the game that we learn when we're first exposed to it are probably the most important lessons that we get from golf. And so, yeah, what did I walk away? I walked away from 2 years of learning the game at my father's side, and developing a strong like moral and ethical compass that golf brought for me.
And it's such a happy place. And when I hear the one thing, maybe we'll talk about this another time, but I hear a lot of young men that are building their careers, starting families, and I say, how much golf are you playing? They're like, not much. And I get it. I get it. But sometimes there's guilt around it. And I'm like, always play guilt-free golf. Okay. It's just going to help you in the long run. And your family may need a break from you too. And maybe you from it. And it's always time well spent. It's not like you're, sloughing off on your responsibilities. Rand, we're getting to the end here. I don't know if you can top the Alan Shepard story, but maybe you can. But maybe if you have like one or two golf stories that are always your go-tos that get a wow from whoever's hearing them, what would they be?
So I had a great privilege that started at the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach in 2000 and went through 2009. I was the interview moderator in the media center at the U.S. Open. which meant that, before the championship starts and then during the championships, the leading players and top players would come in and sit down for half-hour conversations with the media. And I would literally sit like right next to the player. And I was the moderator of those interviews. And in that role, so think 2000 to 2009, and you can't avoid Tiger Woods. I had a front row seat. I had the adjacent seat to Tiger Woods.
Stop for a sec. Were you nervous?
Maybe the first time.
Yeah.
Maybe the first time with Tiger, and I mean, it was such a media circus in those years, right? So the media centers were bigger. This was before the internet, before all the daily newspapers started to go away, right? We all know what's happened to the media. Tiger would come into the interview room, and at the back of the interview room, like he and I would be sitting there, and there would be 200 cameras and lights and a packed house, and fortunately, God, maybe I learned it from golf, right? Grace under pressure. You do your job. Like you kind of buckle down, you tune out all about, and my job was to actually be a steward for Tiger, and help him tell his story, and be able to talk about things. And so he and I formed a bit of a relationship. I wouldn't say it was a close relationship. Like he knew me, I knew him, we knew each other. He knew I had his back. And I think that, for me, the story that I like to share is about the 2008 US Open when Tiger won on a broken leg. And in the pre-championship interviews, Tiger hadn't been playing for a month and a half. People knew something was wrong, but nobody knew how severe it was or exactly what was going on. Tiger came in, and he and I are sitting at the front of this huge room, all these cameras, but we're at a table, and there's a cloth in front of the table, so nobody can really see him. Like they can see him from the waist up, and from the waist up, he's Tiger, right? He's beaming, he's smiling, he's projecting, exuding confidence like he always did. And underneath the table, the entire time, he's massaging his knee and he's stretching his leg back and forth and back and forth. And I'm like, and he knew that I could see what was going on. And of course, the media wanted to know what was going on. And I had his secret, like I had his back, and I wasn't going to say like, hey, Tiger, what are you doing? Like, what's going on under the table? And when you're sitting that close to someone, you can see pain. Like there's this little pain in the corner of his eye. And I'm like, something is not right. And you could sort of see. And of course, Tiger goes on in this epic championship at Torrey Pines, has this amazing playoff with Rocco, wins, and in the day or two after, out comes the story of Tiger wins on a broken leg. But I was behind the front row. Like I was right there next to him with him, understanding what was going on. And he knew I wasn't going to make him answer the question. He knew, I wasn't going to call on a media member who might ask the question. Right. So, if it was Tiger's story to tell and not mine, and I knew it. And having experiences like that, interviewing US Open champions right after they'd won, interviewing the runner-up right after a heartbreaking loss, and having that conversation, sitting next to VJ when the whole Annika at Colonial story exploded, and VJ came in the media center, looked at me and said, if they ask a question about Annika, you're answering. It was a fun and crazy couple years, but to have that experience of just kind of being that close to the greatest players of the game on the game's greatest stage was an incredible honor for me. And just so many memories and moments from those years and that week during those years.
Well, everybody wants the behind the scenes stuff, and nobody was closer than you. Now that I think about it, with the story of Tiger massaging his knee and his leg, and I think that's the purpose of the podcast, is people that can take you places that you can't possibly go and tell you more. Because there's you and I know there's always more to the story. It's just, can you really get to it? And the way we get to it is through people who are closest to it, and they'll provide you with more nuggets. Rand, really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you did too. And I did, You got to come back sometime. Can we do it again? I didn't ask you about the rules. We ran out of time. Like maybe we can dive into the rules. Can you
Maybe
make
that was
rules?
intentional.
Yeah. If you can make rules, but because it affects everybody, I think rules are, especially when the big changes come out. But we'll save that for another time. All right.
Fun conversations. Yep. Kevin, thank you. Appreciate it.
Great stuff. Rand Jerris, noted golf historian, has been our guest here on Party Time. Big thanks to Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, Party. If you're looking for golf real estate, suncoaststreams.com. Gene Walsh, Samantha Walsh, and Vince Vizzacaro, a division of Fine Properties in Greater Sarasota, and BioLit Spa in downtown Sarasota. Got you covered if you need to unwind after a tough round of golf. For Rand Jerris, I'm Kevin Walsh. We'll see you again next time on Party Time, my golf story.
You've been listening to It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers, and the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Vizzacaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoaststreams.com or call 941-220-4000.